You're on. Pet the dog.
It's degrading where human nature can take us. The Bible literally says that the human nature is the enemy of God. I'll try to bring that up for you. Yeah.
You want kielbasa with it?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm running kind of slow here today. Please excuse me. But it says human nature is the enemy of God. And I saw this thing on Facebook. Here's what stemmed. James 4:4. Do you know that friendship with the world is enemy with God? Therefore, whosoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. And Romans 8:7 says, the mind governed by the flesh is hostile. Of course, that's the NIV. Is hostile toward God. For it does not submit to those things. Okay, and I'll try to bring these up and read them to you. And also James 4:4. Okay. Yeah, I know I should have this done before I ever get here, but okay, now here's what I'm saying. In the Old Testament, they used to sacrifice. Jeremiah 19:5 says they built the high places of Baal to burn their children in the fire as offerings to Baal, something I did not command nor mention, nor did it enter my mind. Now, what we as Christians, what we are fighting against is this cardinal nature. You know what? Listen, laying in the middle of the streets, burning, shooting cops, this is all that the cardinal nature will bring you. This is all that the cardinal nature will bring you. And this is not the worst of it. Right here is the worst of it. Burning their children on the altar. That's why they think it's okay to have abortions for whatever cause you want. You know, excuse me, because this cardinal nature does that type of thing. Extremely selfish. This one liberal lady asked me last night, she says, what do you think the word liberal means according to the dictionary? I says, well, as far as I can tell, it's self-centered, egotistical, greedy, and there was about 7 or 8 things I mentioned there. I said, cold-heartedest thing on the face of the planet, even to the killing of the most innocent person on earth, the unborn. I said, that's pretty much all I got right now. Oh boy, man, you know what? All HE double hockey sticks broke loose at that point. You know, because, I mean, there was people jumping in, coming to her aid because she was looking so bad. Oh, that's not what the dictionary says. I said, it don't matter what the dictionary says. I said, I'm just going by the way you act. The proof is in the pudding. The spiritual degradation of a person is the action that they bring. It's not the cause they say they bring, but it's the action that they actually bring, or the thing that they follow. You know, and this is where it's leading. You know, and I put on here today, you know, on my Facebook. I wanted to read that to you too. This says the Satanic Temple claims immunity from rule requiring fetal burials. And down below it says, if Texas tries to impose the rule on a member of the activist organization, they can say they plan to sue. Or they say they plan to sue. But now this is what I'm saying, and this is where it's taking us. And this is what I wrote in at the top. Here you go, folks. If we allow everything that wants to call themselves religion have rights to do as they please, we'll be allowing folks like this to sacrifice children on the altar of their choice, as they did in the Bible to another god. Jeremiah 19:5. They have built altars in high places to Baal, and that's what they did with Baal. And then there's a link there, and I'll have that link on my YouTube here as well. Okay, so that you'll be able to. You know what? I'll just put this whole thing into descriptions so that you'll be able to see it and get to it. But this is where the cardinal nature of man is bringing us, you know. And this is what we're fighting against in this time. You know what? The Lord told me that we were going to have a time where Christians are persecuted in this nation. Now, we're getting ready to do that. Even though we have the president of our choice in that office, if he is weak and lily-livered, if he gets in there and he stops fighting, like it looks to me like he might do, you know what? We have to encourage him. Send him letters. Mr. Trump, we are behind you. We'll focus. Listen, if you want us to rally someplace, you want us to protest, whatever it is that you want, Mr. President, we'll do it for you. If the President of the United States says, you folks come over here and rally behind me and show a force, you know what? We should have about 1 million people show up there. I mean, out of the 175-80 million conservatives that are in the United States, you should be able to get at least one half of 1% of us over there. You know what I mean? If we really believe, if we really want to get behind Mr. Trump, you know what? I'll take a couple days off work and go. You know, I work for a living. Not like most liberals who live on welfare for a living. Well, not all of them, because you know what? At the factory we're 75% conservative in Indiana, and we still have about probably at the factory where I work, there's probably 10% of the people there who are liberal, and they still speak up. You know what? They have their freedom of words. You know, we don't try to force anything on those folks. And you know, that kind of freedom is why they do the things they do now, because they want this degraded carnal nature of theirs to be rule of the day. And when you let that kind of freedom run amok without any kind of rule against it, then you'll have the whole country in slavery. That's what happened to Israel, time and time again. You know what? They would get away from God, go into bondage. See, it's not like God has to come down here and straighten people out every once in a while. That's not it. God has set a law in place that says, when my people forget who I am, it's automatic. It's automatic. That's a verse in the Bible. I'll bring that out too, if I can remember and get it up here. That I don't want to do right now. But you know why Gatlinburg, Tennessee is burning? Because this land has forgotten who God is. I don't know for sure. I can't tell you 100% for sure. But I bet you that Gatlinburg, Tennessee is one of the most ungodly places on this planet. We are living in the day of judgment. We are living in the day of judgment. And when we do these things, it's automatic that we are turned into destruction. This is what Romans says. Romans 8:7. It says, the mind governed by the flesh is hostile to God. The mind governed by the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law. You could see that last night. You know what? I need to put a link on there to that post. You know, I'm going to repost that every day. It talks about Hillary Clinton being lifted up by the media. You see, their Goliath is not out yet. They're still holding her up. They still plan on somewhere around December the 12th through the 19th pushing this lady into the Oval Office illegally. I'm telling you, it's a sure thing. To me, I can see it like you've seen the sun come up this morning, but I can see it. They're going to try to push this lady into the Oval Office illegally. You know, it's obviously Trump won the popular election of the United States. I'm not talking about the 7 or 8 million illegals who the Democrats allowed to vote. Here we got people living in other countries around the world coming in voting for our president. They're not even members of our society. Illegal members, but they're not members, they're not citizens here under the law. And folks, the law is what counts. The law is what counts. That's what governs, that's what controls a nation, that's what brings us into subjection and into the sanity rather than having just chaos everywhere. Outside of the law, you might as well bring back the Vikings of the old days. And he who rules is like the king of the jungle. It's he who has the most strength wins for the day. And if he happens to not have tomorrow, then if he gets weak, then the next guy will step in and take his place, who is the most crooked and who is the most dishonest, underhanded, evil, conniving man able to put himself on top. See, and that's why we have democracy. In a place where democracy is, the little guy has a say. In a place where democracy reigns, the small guy, the minority person, has a say. A lot of times, you know, their saying goes unheard, but sometimes it don't. Which in the other kind of society, they're never heard. As a matter of fact, they eat them for dinner. You know what I mean? If you don't, if you don't think things like that happen, go check out the places in South America where cannibals existed. They ate the flesh of men. You know what? There is no place where this kind of carnal nature will not take you, because it says here, it does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so. It can't. That kind of fleshly type desire cannot submit to God's law. It can be forced. It can be forced, but it will not submit. Mr. Trump, if by a miracle you should hear this, go to this verse and look at it. Those people that you're trying to bring into submission under you are not willing to submit. The only way that you're going to cause them to come under any kind of rule is if you take out their leader, chop off her head, and cause their hearts to melt in fear. Then and only then will the carnal nature come under that kind of subjection. Because see, in every person God has placed fear. In every person God has placed fear. It's the survival instinct of man. It's called fear. You don't think every man has it? You take any brave man, I don't care how big he is, how much kung fu, even Bruce Lee. You take Bruce Lee and put him into the cage with a grizzly bear, a full-grown male grizzly bear, and you watch and see Bruce Lee dig his way out of that cage away from that bear. It's a survival instinct. Mr. President, listen, if you don't use these tactics, you're not going to be any better than Bush. You're not going to be any better than
Obama.
Well, yeah, he's already better than Obama. You're not going to be any better than Bush Sr. or Jr. Not going to be any better than anything that we've had the past 50, 60 years. Unless you do something different. Listen, if you do the same old thing that they've always done, you're going to have the same old thing that you've always had. You're going to have the same thing. You got to use a different tactic. Unless you use the wisdom of God to subdue your enemies with, you're not going to overcome them. You are not going to overcome them. Why? Because the cardinal nature actors under a singular law is I will not submit on my own. That's it. I will not. I don't care what you promise them. You could give each one of them $1 trillion to spend, do whatever they want, and they will use it to bury you with. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next time. Another great message right here, Crossing the Middle Ministry.